Most reincarnation stories follow the same tired formula: a weak loser dies and comes back overpowered. But this one flips the script entirely. Our protagonist isn't some pathetic nobody. He's a king, a legend, a man who conquered everything worth conquering before his mysterious death. So when he opens his eyes again, you'd expect a throne room, gold-plated walls, servants bowing at his feet. Instead, he wakes up as a crying infant in the most ordinary home imaginable. His new mother, Alice, radiates pure kindness. His father, Reynolds, is dependable and charismatic, though a bit childish when he's not being serious. But here's the kicker: this world is ancient, primitive compared to what he knew. For weeks, the reborn king observes everything, convinced he's already figured this place out. Then his mother does something impossible. She heals a wound using magic. Not medicine, not bandages, pure, glowing, reality-bending magic. In that instant, everything he thought he knew shatters. This world isn't just different, it's beyond anything he ever imagined. And he knows absolutely nothing about it. Time crawls forward. The moment the king can crawl, he sneaks out of his crib every single night, driven by an insatiable hunger for knowledge. He discovers books, maps, history. This world is divided into 3 colossal kingdoms: Ilenoir, the mystical elven realm hidden deep within ancient forests; Darv, the sprawling underground domain ruled by dwarves; and Sapin, the human kingdom, the most populated, the most chaotic. Unlike his previous world where power was earned through brutal merit, rulership here is inherited. Bloodlines matter more than skill. The lack of technological progress compared to his old life suddenly makes sense. Why innovate when you have magic? He dives deeper into research, learning about the life force that fuels this world's power system, mana. In his past life, there was Kai, an internal energy cultivated through discipline and pain. But mana exists everywhere, inside you, around you, in the air you breathe. Controlling it is genetic. Roughly 1 in every 100 children are born with the gift, and there are 2 primary paths: augmenters, who channel mana inward to enhance their body's superhuman strength, defense, speed; their weakness, limited range. Then there are conjurers, who manipulate the external world itself, bending reality to their will. But they rely on ambient mana to fuel their spells, making them vulnerable if the environment runs dry. His mother is something rarer, still a deviant, an emitter. Specifically, she specializes in healing magic, a power so uncommon it's almost mythical. According to everything he's read, a mage's mana core awakens during early adolescence, sometimes as late as the teenage years. It's the moment when scattered fragments of mana condense into a single, unified core. The concept sounds eerily similar to forming a Kai center in his old world. Back then, children meditated endlessly, sensing the fragmented Kai scattered throughout their bodies, pulling it together piece by agonizing piece. Curious, the reborn king decides to try it himself. And he nails it. First attempt, his mana fragments begin to gather near his solar plexus. But before he can finish, his mother bursts in and interrupts him. 2 years pass. Alice still feels like she's only scratching the surface of understanding her son. She named him Arthur. He's precious, adorable, but strange. One day, she catches Reynolds teaching their barely crawling baby how to swing a stick and fight. She's furious. What kind of father teaches combat to an infant? Still, she documents everything in her diary, smiling despite herself. Arthur loves visiting the merchant district in central Ashbur. So instead of shopping once or twice a week, Alice goes every other day. She tells herself it's educational, that it's not spoiling him, that the fresh food is just a bonus. But she knows the truth: she can't resist his excitement. She wonders what kind of man he'll become. With Reynolds as his father, an adventurer's life seems inevitable. She only hopes he fares better than the naive teens who dream of glory and die in ditches. If only she could stop him from sneaking into the study every single night. She's half tempted to just move his crib in there. One afternoon, Arthur watches through the window as Reynolds prepares to demonstrate his magic. His father closes his eyes, concentrating so hard his face turns red. Arthur leans forward, curiosity burning. What kind of incredible spell is he about to witness? Slowly, pebbles begin to lift off the ground. They float. Barely a few meters. Reynolds looks proud. Arthur looks utterly unimpressed. 3 minutes of focus. For that, he could have picked them up faster with his hands. Just then, Alice joins him by the window. She glances outside, sees the ruined yard, and sighs. Reynolds has destroyed the lawn again. Arthur learns his father is an augmenter, which only deepens his curiosity about himself. What will he be when his mana core awakens? After watching enough, Arthur tries to climb down from the bench. His tiny body struggles. His eyes droop from exhaustion. Alice misinterprets it as sleepiness and scoops him up for a nap. But Arthur claps his hands together earnestly, silently begging to study instead. The innocence radiating from him is too much. Alice gives in. Arthur sits in front of a book twice his size, flipping through pages. Suddenly, a crash echoes outside. Alice assumes Reynolds knocked down another tree and rushes out. Arthur sees his chance. For the past 2 years, he's been painstakingly gathering tens of thousands of mana fragments, moving them bit by bit toward his solar plexus. It's agonizingly slow. No wonder most people don't awaken until adolescence. But he's almost done. Just one fragment left. He places it, and the house explodes. A shockwave of raw mana erupts from Arthur's tiny body, obliterating the entire structure in a single, catastrophic blast. Outside, Reynolds instinctively shields Alice from the searing heat and debris. When the dust settles, the couple stares at the ruins of their home in horror. Alice screams Arthur's name. Reynolds frantically digs through wreckage. Then they see him, floating, completely unharmed, surrounded by a faint glow of mana. Arthur finally drops to his feet. He can feel it now, the mana core pulsing inside him. The trees look greener. The air feels sharper. Everything is more vivid. Then he notices his house is destroyed. He has no idea what just happened. 5 years pass. Arthur's been learning mana manipulation and augmentation from his mother. At first, he was too small to spar, so they focused on bodyweight training. Recently, Reynolds decided it was finally time for Arthur to practice with the wooden sword he received for his 3rd birthday. Reynolds takes him outside. He holds up a branch and tells Arthur to match the flow of mana with his breathing. Your mana core is just another organ, like your heart or lungs. Arthur stares blankly. These vague instructions mean nothing to a 4-year-old. Still, he takes his stance. They exchange playful blows. Reynolds is having fun. Arthur is frustrated. He knows his father won't let him go until he does something noteworthy. So Arthur gathers his courage and swings hard enough to shatter the stick Reynolds is holding. Then he immediately asks to return to his studies. Back in his study, Arthur learns that strength in this world is measured by the color of your mana core. Cores start black, tainted by impurities. Over time, as those impurities are filtered out, the core changes color: red, orange, yellow, silver, and finally white. Each stage has 3 shades: dark, solid, and light. Lighter means purer, stronger. As Arthur processes this, his mother interrupts. Dinner? At the table, Reynolds brings up finding Arthur a proper mentor. Alice immediately objects. Their son is 4 years old. Reynolds counters that Arthur shows remarkable potential, and he doesn't want to hold him back. Alice refuses to send their child to some distant city. Reynolds promises his trusted friend will personally take care of Arthur. Arthur tunes out most of it. Then they turn to him. Do you want to go study under a real teacher in the big city? Arthur plays the part of a confused child. Can't you both come with me? Silence. Then laughter. They hadn't even thought of that. Reynolds makes the final call. They're all going to Xyrus City together. The day arrives. A party of adventurers will escort them. Reynolds introduces Arthur to the group. Arthur bows respectfully and thanks them for their help. First, there's Durden Cruncher, an augmenter who specializes in spear combat. He immediately likes Arthur's manners. Angela Rose, a conjurer focused on wind magic. Durden Walker, an earth magic conjurer. Jasmine Flamesworth, silent and deadly. And Helen Shard, an augmenter specializing in magic archery. With introductions done, they load the carriages. The journey begins. Arthur is finally leaving the small village he's known his entire life. Dawn breaks. So do the monsters. The adventurers dispatch them effortlessly. They set up camp deep in the forest for the night. Around the bonfire, Arthur looks dejected. The journey feels mundane. Helen notices and sits beside him, curious about the boy Reynolds has been praising non-stop. Durden Cruncher decides to test Arthur himself. Without warning, he scoops the kid off the ground and challenges him to a duel. Arthur's pleading eyes dart toward Reynolds. His father just grins and tells him to win. Feeling utterly betrayed, Arthur takes his stance. Drawing on his past life's experience, he grips his wooden sword and launches himself at Durden. Durden stays steady, ready to dodge, but Arthur vanishes. He reappears directly behind Durden's back. Arthur channels mana into his sword and swings. Durden dodges and retaliates. Arthur ducks, letting the stick whip past his head. He exploits the opening and slams into Durden's ribs, knocking the big man to the ground. Durden isn't done. He sweeps his leg. Arthur ducks again, but he's not fast enough for the follow-up. Durden's stick connects hard, sending Arthur flying. He lands several feet away, back aching. Durden Walker slaps Durden on the neck for going overboard. But Durden is stunned. How did a 4-year-old pull off moves like that? Reynolds insists he hasn't taught Arthur anything. Alice quickly heals Arthur while scolding him for studying combat behind her back. Arthur claims he just picked up a few moves from watching his father and reading books. Durden isn't convinced. He begs Arthur to teach him. Arthur explains the techniques, but when the others try, they fail miserably. Days pass. Arthur's birthday comes and goes. The group gifts him items not just for his birthday, but as thanks for teaching them. Surprisingly, even the usually passive Jasmine gives him a gift. She's already mastered a few of his techniques. Her progress is shocking. After some fun near a waterfall, the group presses on. They arrive at a desolate, barren landscape, a stark contrast to the lush greenery behind them. The group jokes about Reynolds being a trouble magnet who always drags everyone into chaos. Arthur tries to read, but it's impossible. Jasmine won't stop staring at him. Suddenly, their journey is interrupted. Bandits. Arrows rain down. Angela Rose's wind magic deflects most of them. The adventurers draw their weapons, auras flaring. Helen readies an arrow, but judging by the sheer number of bandits pouring over the hills, one arrow won't be enough. They're completely surrounded. A disgusting man appears, the bandit leader. He barks orders to keep the women and the kid alive. Damaged goods don't sell. Arthur realizes this world isn't so different from his last. Crime exists here too, and it's just as cruel. He grips his dagger, ready to fight. But before he can move, Alice pulls him into a hug, whispering that there's nothing to worry about. The bandits fire another volley. Durden Walker conjures a stone wall, blocking most of it. But some bandits charge from every direction. A few arrows slip past. Angela deflects them with wind magic. The bandit leader descends the hill. Helen fires arrows, taking down 2 goons, but the leader deflects her shots effortlessly. Reynolds tears through bandits like paper. With a single dash, he cuts down a dozen. A sneaky bastard tries to ambush Reynolds from behind. Helen drills him with an arrow. The battle rages. Durden Cruncher fights like a beast, stabbing through enemies with brutal efficiency. Jasmine is even more vicious, slashing throats and gouging eyes with her dual daggers. One creep cracks a whip at her. The speed is insane. Jasmine dodges and weaves, but still takes grazes. Arthur watches, realizing she's at a disadvantage against ranged attacks. He needs to help. But can he even fight an adult augmenter in this tiny body? Suddenly, someone crashes into their carriage. It's Reynolds, severely injured. His opponent, the bandit leader, Arthur tells Alice to heal Reynolds, but Alice is frozen, sobbing. Reynolds smiles through the pain, insisting his injuries aren't life-threatening. He looks at Arthur. I can hold him off, but not while protecting you two. Run back down the trail. Don't stop. Arthur refuses. I can fight too. Reynolds pats his head. Your real duty is protecting your mother and the baby she's carrying. Arthur swears on his life to protect her. Reynolds nods and warns that the enemy has 4 mages backing them up. The bandit leader catches on. He orders his men to capture the healer. Arthur grabs Alice's hand and runs. One bastard lunges. Durden Cruncher blocks him, giving them time to escape. Another bastard fires an arrow. Arthur senses it and blocks it with his wooden sword. The impact cracks the sword in 2. The archer is stunned. Then his head is drilled by Helen's arrow. She yells at Arthur to run. As Arthur runs with his mother, he counts the mages. One's fighting Durden. One's fighting Durden Walker. One's fighting Jasmine. That's 3. Where's the 4th? He spots him, standing atop a hill, conjuring a massive ball of mana. The bastard hurls it at them. Arthur has no time. If he blocks it, his mother won't escape. In a split-second decision, he slams his feet into the ground and shoves Alice out of the way. Through the hazy mana ball, he throws his dagger with godly speed. It strikes the mage's leg. The mana ball slams into Arthur, sending him flying toward the cliff's edge. As he begins to fall, he drags the mage with him. The dagger is attached to a mana string, but the mage grabs the cliff's edge. The rock crumbles. They both plummet. Durden Walker conjures a massive hand of earth to catch Arthur, but he's too late. Tears well in Arthur's eyes. What breaks his heart isn't the fall. It's the thought that his dream of becoming a big brother is slipping away. The scene shifts. A chamber. A man named Marlorn addresses King Grey. Marlorn admits that despite his rewarding position on the council, he sometimes envies the fame kings receive. He asks why King Grey has come. Grey silently places a war medal on the table. I'm retiring. In this world plagued by declining birth rates and limited resources, wars had been replaced by duels. Armies by kings. Grey was one of those kings. But his decision to retire isn't from exhaustion. It's from emptiness. He's an orphan. Everyone he loved is gone. Reborn as Arthur, he carries one profound yearning. He would give up everything in this life for one chance to return to Ashbear and see them all again. Arthur opens his eyes. He has no idea where he is, or why he's alive. Nearby lies the mage's corpse, twisted and broken. The sight makes Arthur gag. A leaf drifts down and lands on his face, jolting him awake. He spots a water pouch and food. He crawls toward them and devours everything. Then collapses. Later, he opens his eyes again. He tries to stand. His legs give out. He falls. But he pushes himself up. He pulls the dagger from the mage's corpse. He looks up. The cliff is impossibly tall. How did he survive? Suddenly, a voice calls out. Arthur freezes. Is the mage's ghost haunting him? The voice asks about his condition. Arthur nervously pokes the corpse. The voice reassures him it won't reanimate. Arthur asks if the voice saved him. The voice confirms it did. But when Arthur asks for its identity, the voice cryptically says he'll learn soon enough. Arthur doesn't trust it. The voice reminds him it's the only one who can get him home. Home. Arthur remembers his parents, his unborn sibling. He gets humble real quick. Mr. Voice, could you trouble yourself for directions? The voice chuckles. I like your quick wit, but I'm not a mister. I'm a lady. Since Arthur was polite, she agrees to guide him. Arthur's mind is flooded with visions. He sees everything places far off in the distance. With this new sight, he begins his journey out of the woods. His body recovers gradually. By afternoon, only faint aches remain. But he's still trying to figure out what magic she used. How did she know he was falling? Why did she only save him? The more he thinks, the more questions he has. Arthur hears water flowing. He climbs a giant rock and dives into the river without hesitation. As he enjoys the refreshing moment, the mysterious lady scolds him for being so carefree. She also mocks the size of his weapon. Arthur feels humiliated and quickly pulls his clothes back on. He fills his water pouch and eats. Since he fell toward the east, he must be near the elves' domain. But there's no fog. The forest of Elshire is known for fog. He's surprised he hasn't seen any mana beasts, given how rich the area is in mana. He'd love to absorb some, but he has no time. His mother is pregnant. If they think he's dead, the stress could endanger the baby. He has to get back. After walking for hours, Arthur finally arrives at the place where the mysterious lady resides. For a moment, he mistakes her for a cluster of rocks. The lady quickly corrects him. "I'm not some sentient pile of rocks. If you want to meet me, head into the crevice." Arthur descends into a tunnel glowing with faint arcane energy. He swallows his fear and walks deeper. Suddenly, he stumbles and falls into an abyss of glowing blue energy. He crashes hard onto solid ground. His jaw aches. He forces himself up. But he collapses again. Before him stands a terrifying monster, so imposing it makes him trip in fear. But this monster is the mysterious lady who's been talking to him all along. As she walks toward him, Arthur panics. His jaw hangs open. She suggests he shut his mouth unless he wants bugs to crawl in. She extends her massive hand. Calmly, she explains it will take time to open a dimensional rift strong enough to transport him home. Until then, he should enjoy the nourishment from the mysterious plants around them. Arthur bows and expresses his gratitude. He walks toward the strange glowing fruits. They're so shiny he can see his reflection. He feels sorrow. The fruits remind him of eating with his family. As he drifts into thought, the monster suddenly startles him from behind. Arthur unintentionally crushes the fruit, splattering juice all over his face. Later, they sit down to eat. Arthur finally asks her to introduce herself. The monster reveals her name, Sylvia. With names exchanged, Arthur's fear fades. He asks the questions burning in his mind. Where is this place? Why is she here alone? Where did she come from? How did she get that wound? And most importantly, why did she save him? Sylvia starts answering. This place is a narrow zone between the Beast Glades and the forest of Elshire. No one knows about it because she's been warding off anyone who comes near. Arthur is basically the first to enter her domain. Feeling at ease, Arthur gives her permission to call him Art, just like his family does. Sylvia nods and continues. She's here alone because she has no one left. She has many enemies who want something she possesses. Her last battle left her with the wound on her chest. As for why she saved Arthur, she admits she was moved by his courage and sacrifice. Or perhaps she was just lonely. Whatever the case, she isn't entirely sure. She apologizes, explaining she needs to excuse herself for the night. Her wound is festering and she needs to be in good condition to work on the dimensional rift tomorrow. Arthur thanks her and wishes her a good night. As the imposing figure walks away, he can't help but think how lonely she appears. Before leaving, Sylvia shares one final piece of information. While her sight cannot reach the exact location of his family, she assures him they're all safe. Arthur is momentarily speechless. Then tears of happiness flow. He cracks a smile and thanks her for the news he desperately needed. Time passes. Sylvia and Arthur spend hours talking whenever she isn't preparing the portal. Hours bleed into days, days into weeks. They spend nearly every moment together. While Sylvia never speaks much about her own life, Arthur begins to understand her. After living with this armor-clad mysterious lady, Arthur comes to realize Sylvia is the living embodiment of "don't judge a book by its cover." Contrary to her terrifying appearance, she's kind, gentle, patient, and warm. The way she cares for him reminds him of his mother, gentle and kind, but strict when needed, especially when he's wrong. Speaking of strict, Arthur recalls an unpleasant memory. He'd expressed animosity toward the bandits who attacked his family. The image of their leader is burned into his mind. He knows his thoughts won't be at peace unless he hunts that monster down. That's when Sylvia suddenly pokes him on the forehead, sending him flying several feet. She admits the bandits deserved death, which is precisely why she didn't save the mage who fell alongside him. However, she makes it clear that letting his heart become clouded with hatred and vengeance will only harm him. She tells him to continue living proudly, keeping his gaze forward, free from the weight of vengeance. He will face misfortunes again, but he shouldn't let grief and rage corrode his mind. Instead, he should learn from them, face the future with a smile, and only then will he truly be victorious. Arthur wasn't expecting a lecture on morals from someone who looks like the epitome of evil. Yet her words strike him deeply. Lost in thought, he barely notices when she pulls him back, reminding him to finish the fruit she gave him. As he eats, he notices her wound looks worse. She reassures him it's normal for it to fester from time to time. But she has something else on her mind. According to her understanding, humans usually awaken their mana core around age 12 or 13. So how has he already formed his core and learned to use mana more efficiently than many trained mages? Arthur proudly explains he's simply a born genius. Sylvia says if that's the case, she has something to teach him. A technique. A way to meditate and absorb mana while moving, maybe even while fighting, if he's skilled enough. When she demonstrates, Arthur is awestruck. Curiosity shoots through the roof. Sylvia explains that humans often have a linear mindset when it comes to mana. To master this technique, he must start small with simple, mindless movement and gradually work his way up. Mana beasts learn this naturally, but since humans awaken much later, their bodies aren't capable of this kind of multitasking. Since that doesn't apply to Arthur, if he practices hard enough, he should succeed. These words fire Arthur up. He promises to do his best. While Sylvia is busy forming the rift, Arthur practices diligently. But his wrong movement causes him to trip. Practicing this skill essentially means being able to fight proficiently while maintaining a steady inward flow of mana. His confidence doesn't waver. He keeps swinging, keeps practicing, trying to absorb the mana around him. Eventually, he gets the hang of it. He masters the art of mana absorption. He happily shares his achievement with Sylvia. But she's already exhausted and unresponsive. Her injury has gotten the best of her. Blood leaks through her massive body, filling the area. Arthur panics. He grabs her massive hand and, with every ounce of strength his small body can muster, successfully turns her over. Her wound is worsening. But when he looks ahead, the rift she's been creating is finally complete and ready for travel. Arthur realizes that all this time, as she worked on creating the portal, her injuries were getting worse. The realization devastates him. She suffered because she was trying to create this portal for him, and he hadn't even noticed until now. That crushes him. Sylvia speaks with her faint voice, assuring him everything is all right. Arthur clings to her, tears streaming down his face. He cries his heart out. He doesn't know how it can possibly be all right when she's about to leave him like this. The thought that she's given up her life for him makes his heart ache even more. In that moment, Arthur cries. He cries longer than he would ever care to admit. For the first time, he cries like the child he appears to be on the outside. Sylvia reminds him gently that their time together is short, and she would hate for it to be wasted on him blaming himself. But Arthur doesn't know how he can possibly not blame himself. She's sacrificing herself so he can reunite with his family. Sylvia, however, is grateful. Because of Arthur, she'll finally be able to leave this forsaken cave a little sooner. For that reason alone, she has no regrets. Her body begins to disintegrate, turning into ash. The black armor crumbles away. A pair of radiant white wings appear. Before him stands Sylvia in a new form, one where she looks more like herself than she ever did before. Arthur definitely wasn't expecting Sylvia to turn out to be a dragon. She admits it. She's a dragon. Or at least, that's what humans would call a being like her. But they don't need to waste time with small talk. She has to use her original form to finish the portal. Now that her veil is gone, her enemies will soon be coming for her. Before she parts ways with him, she tells him there are a few things she must say. She bestows upon him a rainbow-like egg, along with a handful of her feathers. She tells him to warm the egg with her feathers to conceal its aura. Before Arthur can process what's happening, she suddenly bumps into him. Some sort of reaction causes his clothes to tear and patterns begin to appear across his skin. Sylvia reassures him he'll understand everything in time. Now that she's done what she needed to do, she opens the portal. She doesn't have time to make it lead directly to his home, but it should get him close to humans. She urges him to hurry and jump. Just as he's about to leap, rocks begin to fall from the ceiling. Sylvia quickly spreads her massive wings and saves him from being crushed. The one responsible for the destruction is a creepy figure who oddly resembles Sylvia. He addresses her formally, requesting she see reason and hand it over. If she submits, he might even heal her wounds. Even Arthur can tell this new figure looks similar to the form Sylvia had taken earlier. Sylvia then uses an ability that freezes time around her. The only ones who can move are herself and Arthur. She admits she intentionally prolonged the transportation spell so she could spend more time with him. She understands it was selfish, but she has one more selfish request she wants him to fulfill. She asks him to call her grandma just this once. Arthur, completely baffled, looks at her in disbelief. He tells her to just leave this place with him instead. Sylvia's tears stream down her face. She tells Arthur she can't leave with him. Before he can protest further, she forcefully throws him into the portal. With a final, bittersweet farewell, as he tumbles through the rift, Arthur calls out to her one last time, fulfilling her request by addressing her as Grandma. His words bring a gentle smile to her face. She thanks him softly, and with those parting words, their story together comes to an end. But Arthur's story continues. He lands in a dense forest surrounded by towering trees. The only thought in his mind is of her. His chest aches not only with sadness, but also with frustration and anger. He knows he'll never see her again. The weight of that realization is unbearable. All he can do is scream. It's no surprise he's devastated by her loss. For 4 months, Sylvia had been a constant presence in his life, filling his head with memories that now refused to fade. For a time that seemed both fleeting and eternal, she treated him as though he were her own blood. She gave him what he lacked since coming to this world: care, guidance, and love. But it seems this isn't truly the end. As he lies there, he begins to hear her voice. As it turns out, it's just a recorded message. Sylvia had burned it into his mind before parting ways, leaving him with one last piece of her. The recorded message begins. She tells Arthur he's nowhere near ready to know the full truth. His body is still that of a boy barely past the age of 4, though his monocore has already progressed to the dark red stage. She explains she's infused him with a parting gift, a unique will. His future as a mage will depend on how well he learns to wield this gift. But Arthur doesn't feel particularly grateful for this so-called gift. Bitterness churns within him, a mix of sorrow, anger, and guilt clouding his thoughts. Almost as if she can sense his emotions, Sylvia knows exactly how he feels right now. But he must remember he still has a family waiting for him and a purpose to fulfill in this life. Her only wish is for him to embrace the joys and innocence of childhood and one day grow into a man his parents and she can be proud of. Sylvia's message concludes with a promise. When his monocore surpasses the white stage, he'll hear from her again. At that time, she'll explain everything to him. Until then, she bids King Grey farewell. The mention of his previous life title grabs Arthur's attention. He stands frozen, mind clouded with confusion. The biggest question haunting him: how long has she known his true identity? And how did she even know him in the first place? For now, he brushes off all thoughts regarding her and focuses on his current predicament. If he spends this life only training for the sake of revenge, it will hardly be different from his last. From now on, he has no choice but to move forward. But first, where the hell is he? He activates the mana absorption technique and dashes through the forest with godly speed. After running for a while, Arthur realizes that despite using mana, his vision is still somewhat restricted. But one thing becomes clear: he's deep within the Elshire forest. Even though he's still barely able to use the mana rotation Sylvia taught him, he can now sustain magic for much longer. However, after roaming around for what feels like ages, he still hasn't found a way out. Sylvia had promised him he'd arrive near other humans, but so far, he hasn't seen a single trace of them. After hopping through trees for what feels like forever, Arthur starts to feel like a monkey who's mastered tree travel. Suddenly, he senses the presence of a human. Quickly, he hops from tree to tree and spots a carriage below. He uses his acrobatic skills to descend a little. From a safe distance, he tries to eavesdrop on what these people are up to. These filthy scumbags don't seem to be good people. They've just captured a woman. It turns out she's an elf. Since she's young and untouched, they're already fantasizing about making a fortune off her. The amount of resentment and anger etched across Arthur's face makes it clear these monsters aren't going to leave this place alive, let alone make a quick buck off the elf. Arthur has no idea how these pigs managed to get their hands on forest hounds, but he knows getting one would be his best bet to escape this forest. As for the slave traders, he's planning to use them as a punching bag to blow off some steam. As eager as Arthur is to get back home, he knows he needs a solid plan. Dealing with those slave traders first is the best course of action, but he doesn't want to strike blindly. Attacking all four head-on would be suicide. So he quietly follows them instead. He waits patiently, looking for the perfect opportunity, gathering his strength to strike when their guards are down. As night falls, it's finally time for him to make his move. Arthur executes his plan by throwing a nut into a nearby tree, immediately setting the hounds on high alert. One of the men tells his companion to shut the dogs up before they wake and attract all the dangers lurking in the forest. While one man is distracted with the hounds, Arthur seizes the opportunity. He appears right in front of the scumbag and, with a quick slash from his mana-infused hand, he slices through the man's throat in one clean strike. After taking that monster down, Arthur loots his corpse, grabbing a decent-looking dagger from the man's belongings. Meanwhile, the other fat guy who sent his friend to silence the hounds begins wondering why it's taking so long, especially since the dogs have gone quiet. When he goes to check, Arthur ambushes him as well, delivering a precise strike that slits his throat just like the first. With two down, there are still two left, but Arthur's body is already starting to wear out from the effort. Suddenly, the elf girl inside the carriage starts making a commotion, the last thing Arthur wanted to happen. The other two goons step out and start looking around for their missing companions. Arthur stays hidden behind the carriage, but one of them senses something and attacks. Arthur barely blocks the strike and counters by cutting the man's legs clean off. The piercing scream echoes through the night, catching the attention of the other bandit searching in the opposite direction. He rushes back, finding his friend writhing on the ground, mortally wounded. The injured man warns his friend to be careful. The brat they're dealing with is a mage. The mention of a mage piques the curiosity of the long-haired bandit. He eagerly tosses his sword aside and opts to use his bare hands, clearly not wanting to harm this golden opportunity he's about to capture. After all, this brat might fetch an even higher price than the elf girl if they sell him in good condition. With that in mind, he charges forward. Arthur leaps away just in time and counters by throwing a rock straight at the monster's face. The rock lands with enough force to leave the man bleeding from his mouth. Arthur tries to take advantage of his dazed state by throwing a mana-induced dagger at him, but the bandit snatches it midair. This strike only intrigues the scumbag even more. To think this kid has some nasty tricks up his sleeve. The bandit launches a powerful kick, slamming into Arthur with enough force to rattle his small frame and send him crashing to the ground. For a moment, Arthur is completely out of commission, winded and vulnerable. The bandit doesn't hesitate. grabbing the little one from the ground and locking him in his grip. But Arthur isn't one to go down quietly. He quickly grabs the monster's wrist and begins condensing mana into his hand. At one particular moment, the technique causes an explosion big enough to leave the bandit's hand scorched and utterly useless. The bandit screams in pain because of his fried hand. This is a clear chance for Arthur to strike, and he doesn't hesitate. He throws his knife and slits the man's throat, finishing him on the spot. Now only the bald man remains, already writhing on the ground, begging for mercy as his severed legs leave him completely immobilized. But Arthur abandoned the concept of mercy a long time ago for scum like these. So it goes without saying he finishes the job, ensuring none of them leave the forest alive. With these scumbags taken care of, he turns to the timid elf girl, whose first instinct upon seeing him is to cower in fear. He gently tries to ease all her fear with sweet talk and comforting words. Once she calms down, he pulls the cloth tied over her mouth. Now that he's saved her, he decides to walk his own path. But the thought of being left alone terrifies the girl, so she quickly clings to him with her cute, pleading eyes. Arthur tries to reason with her that since he's taken care of those bad guys, they won't be able to chase her anymore. Besides, elves are generally safe in this forest anyway. But the girl quickly shakes her head and reminds him that beasts are only scared of adults. Her parents said kids will get eaten by hounds or golem trees. The thought of being a babysitter doesn't sit well with Arthur. But since he has no choice, he reluctantly asks her how far her home is. The girl nonchalantly responds that she doesn't know. He lets out a sigh and begins to walk away, assuring her he's simply going to gather some supplies for them. Although he salvaged what he could for the journey ahead, neither of them knew how long it would take. He also had to think about the journey back. He feels quite sad seeing they can't take this carriage as it would have been way faster. But if they did, they'd just stick out like a sore thumb. He's looking forward to finding the elves, as they might have something that can take him back to the human kingdom. During his supply hunting, he found some clothes in the carriage and presents them to the little elf, telling her to wear this cloak as it'll probably get cold. The little lady is glad for his kind gesture, and he gives her a pat on the head in response. With that, they're ready to make their way to their homes. As they walk in the vague direction she pointed to, Arthur gets to know more about the elf child. Her name is Tesha Iralith, and she got separated from her family and left out in the forest. She questions if he's from the human kingdom. Whenever she remembers the human kingdom, all she thinks of are the rumors that say all male humans are perverts and have more than one wife. In their journey, they spend their time with back and forth banter and teasing. Night settles, and they set up their camp in the thick of the woods. Arthur decides to keep watch outside and suggests she get some sleep in the meantime. Once Tesha gets inside the camp to have some well-deserved rest, Arthur sits alone under the expanse of brightly lit stars, reflecting on his situation. His initial plan was to utilize his time figuring out what this will Sylvia left for him was all about. But it looks like he'll have to wait to unravel this secret until he escorts the elf girl to her home. The girl gets out and suggests he get some rest as well. Although her grandmother has prohibited her from sharing her bed with boys, she says she'll make an exception once. But Arthur tells her he's not sleepy. Before retreating back into the camp, the girl reminds him that beasts are more likely to appear if they notice him. Therefore, she wants him to get inside, even if he's on guard duty. It's safer for both of them. Eventually, Arthur gives in to her wishes, and they both get into the same bedding. The next day arrives. After their well-deserved naps, they continue their journey. With unfamiliar surroundings and time quickly passing as the only indicators of their progress, Arthur admits that worries about family and impatience to get back home don't leave him in the best of moods. But what makes the journey almost unbearable are the agonizing pains coming from his mana core that strike unpredictably from time to time. His pain has become an everyday occurrence. Every day he wakes up, he's randomly hit by it. On one particular day during their journey, they're getting followed by wild wolves. But Arthur doesn't even look back when he throws that knife, which lodges itself into the tree next to the wolf's head. Soon, all of these poor creatures get the jump scare of their life. While Tesha points her finger in the direction ahead, Arthur is hit by this unbearable pain in his chest once again. He quickly hides behind a tree so Tesha doesn't have to see the miserable state he's in, afraid she'd only worry. Another night comes, and they set their camp in the thick of the woods. Just like that, another day arrives. Days pass like this, and Tesha appears to recognize more and more of their indistinguishable surroundings, which is a positive sign. However, their pace has slowed as Tesha's body can't keep up with the toll of constant travel. To ease some burden off her tiny shoulders, Arthur takes her luggage himself. Though Arthur isn't having it easy either. Despite strengthening his body with mana, the pain continues to grow, and it becomes harder to hide it from the worried elf. Another night comes and blends back into a day. One day, as they continue their journey, Tesha makes an odd request. Since they've gotten pretty close with each other, she wonders if by any chance she can call him Art, like how his family does. Arthur gives her the green light right away. Tesha wasn't expecting him to agree so easily. For that reason, Arthur decides to act dramatic on purpose in the creepiest way possible. He says he'd be most honored if Tesha would refer to this humble countryside boy as Arthur. The girl pinches his cheeks for teasing her like this. As their banter continues, Tesha suddenly notices something. She happily rushes in that direction while Arthur isn't exactly thrilled. As far as he can see, it's just moss, leaves, fog, trees, and lots of trees. Anyhow, their journey continues. And honestly, this is one of the longest journeys I've ever covered. This journey serves its purpose in character development, and because of it, Arthur seems to have gotten closer to the little lady. Despite the mental age gap, they've grown a lot closer. Another day arrives, bringing another round of exploring the unknown woods. It looks like this long journey has finally borne fruit, as they seem to have made it. After feeling all the trees around her, Tesha finally finds the one she'd been searching for. She does some magical ritual and opens a green gate in the wooden tree, inviting him to follow her inside. As soon as Arthur steps in, he falls through to the other side. When Arthur gets up and helps himself look ahead, he sees a magnificent sight. There's an entire civilization of elves. The only word that pops into his mind after witnessing the grandeur of this place is pristine. But even that word feels like it doesn't do the place justice. As soon as the eyes of the local elves lock onto Arthur, some soldiers quickly appear right before them. The soldiers aren't here to apprehend him, though. Instead, they're here to escort the royal princess with full protocol. The sight shocks Arthur to the point where he has no clue how he's supposed to react. His mind is clouded with all sorts of questions. But Tesha just nods her head slightly to affirm that what he's seeing is indeed real. One of the knights reports they arrived as soon as they noticed the royal teleportation gate had been used. He also mentions the king and queen have returned as well. Promptly, the scene pans to the panicking parents rushing toward their girl, Tesha. The lady is Muriel Iralith, Queen of Elenwar. The man behind her is, of course, her husband Alduin Iralith, King of Elenwar. Another big shot enters the scene, Virion Iralith, a name noted in every history book. He's the former king of Elenwar, known for leading the last war against the humans of the Sapin Kingdom. With all her family members gathered, Arthur gently pushes Tesha forward toward her worried parents. They exchange warm hugs with her. Seeing how warm and full of love the scene is, Arthur remembers his own parents and wonders if his mother and father will react the same way when they see him again. King Alduin turns to Arthur and expresses his heartfelt gratitude not just as the king of Elenwar, but as Tesha's father. As a small gesture of thanks for helping Tesha arrive home safely, he invites Arthur to accompany them to their home. Arthur is free to rest for a few days, and in the meantime, the king is eagerly looking forward to hearing the tale of their journey. Arthur can sense how firm and gentle the man's tone is, but his eyes clearly betray that feeling. From the look in his eyes, it's clear what he requested isn't an offer, it's an order. Arthur reciprocates the gesture by expressing his gratitude for the offer. But he's suddenly yanked away when Tesha grabs him by the hand and starts dragging him along. Even the onlookers are startled to see this. The girl, on the other hand, is just dying to show him everything this place has to offer. Arthur's first impression is one of absolute awe. Although he somewhat expected an impressive castle after learning Tesha was a princess, the magnificent place before him is more than a castle or mansion to live in. At one point, Arthur even starts to wonder if he's accidentally transmigrated into some corny fantasy novel. The queen quickly introduces their little guest to the maids and orders them to make sure Arthur has the best time possible while he's there. Arthur is glad to receive all this pleasant treatment, but he feels the need to explain what happened first. It looks like Tesha's parents are more than willing to hear all the juicy details, so all the core members of the family, including some senior knights, gather to hear Arthur out. First, Arthur gives an introduction, presenting himself as Arthur Lewin from a humble town in the kingdom of Sapin. He's quite honored to be in the presence of the royal family. It's a little over the top for an introduction, but Arthur knows the discussion isn't going to progress if they treat him like a child. Even the king can't help but point out how, despite Arthur claiming to come from humble origins, he seems rather mature and well-educated. This only piques their interest in what he has to say. And so Arthur recounts his journey, starting with a vague explanation that he got separated from his family after running into bandits. It's not exactly a lie, but more of a half-truth. Inevitably, as the story progresses to the part where he ran into their daughter, the atmosphere shifts. The king grows visibly angry upon hearing it was slave traders, or rather, humans who captured Tesha. It's clear the king doesn't have a favorable impression of humans to begin with, and this revelation only fuels his disdain. Arthur also doesn't like the fact this elf king is stereotyping the entire human race behind a few slave traders. So with all due respect, Arthur corrects this man that slave trading is a profession, not a race. This remark only earns Arthur a lot of shining blades pointed at him. But Virian Eralith quickly stops the knights from stepping forward. Virian, intrigued by the story so far, expresses curiosity about how Arthur managed to free his granddaughter from the bandits. Perhaps he negotiated or begged them for mercy. But Arthur denies doing anything like that and honestly explains he's also a mage despite the fact he's a child. So basically, he eliminated the slave traders and rescued their granddaughter. One impatient knight, out of anger, quickly draws his sword from its scabbard. As far as he's concerned, Arthur is being absurd with the lies he's spouting in front of everyone. But this impulsive action only earns the knight a deadly glare from Virian Eralith, a glare so intense it rattles the overeager knight on the spot. Finally, Arthur stands up from his seat and declares he doesn't care whether anyone believes him or not. The fact remains Tesha has been returned safely. The only wish he wants granted is to return to his family in Sapin. Hearing this, Tesha is shocked Arthur is leaving so soon. The girl's parents are startled to see how much compassion she feels for him. Meanwhile, Arthur gently reminds her of the history humans and elves share. He doesn't believe it's appropriate for a human to remain inside this kingdom for too long. Besides, his current priority is ensuring his family is safe and letting them know he's okay as well. The king decides to speak next. He briefly acknowledges the past between the two kingdoms and emphasizes Arthur saved their daughter and went through the trouble of accompanying her all the way back to Elenoir. This, the king declares, entitles Arthur to a befitting reward. First, the king shares unfortunate news. The teleportation gate linked to the Sapin Kingdom is only accessible once every 7 years during the summit conference between the three races. This means it'll be another 5 years before the gate opens again. However, the king is more than happy to send a group of guards to escort Arthur back home safely. He also expresses his wish for Arthur to stay a little longer, giving the elves a chance to serve and spoil him as a guest. The king admits that while some elves are tolerant of humans, too many still hold grudges from the war long ago. For now, Arthur is told to make himself at home, as they'll have his escort prepared by tomorrow morning. Later, Arthur finds himself inside a lavish room that's been given to him. The first thing he does is take a well-deserved shower. But while he showers, the pain from his mana core suddenly flares up again, causing him to double over. After finishing, he rests on the couch, holding the egg Sylvia had entrusted to him. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door. When he opens it, he finds Tesha standing in front of him. Without any prior warning, she headbutts him in the belly, almost making him gag. Apparently, she's upset about how coldly he spoke to her parents and the fact he's planning to leave so soon. Arthur tries to remind this gullible girl he was only being respectful since they're the king and queen of the entire kingdom. In fact, he's the one who should be angry she didn't tell him about their royal status beforehand. Tesha sticks to her guns and makes it clear she doesn't want him to leave because he's the first friend she's ever made. Hearing this makes Arthur crack a smile. In a friendly gesture, he places his hand over her neck like they're lifelong buddies and tells her to stop being a crybaby and show him around the castle. And so they explore the castle together. Tesha makes sure to take him to her favorite spot in the entire place. This particular spot looks absolutely breathtaking during spring when the flowers bloom. She also introduces him to a unique type of insect known as glow bees, which are specially cultivated there. As she's trying to show him the glow bees, Arthur suddenly notices something coming from behind a dagger. Without wasting a single second, he grabs the little lady and pushes her aside. In the same instant, he catches the weapon and retaliates with the insane speed he's got. The person behind this stunt is none other than Virian Iralith, her grandfather. Arthur is absolutely shocked, thinking her own grandfather just tried to take a hit on her. But the old man calmly assures him the weapon he's holding is just a toy. Now that Arthur takes a closer look, he feels a bit embarrassed for being tricked. Virian, on the other hand, is impressed seeing how fast Arthur reacted. From catching this little toy to even using it against him instantly is mind-boggling. The old man notes Arthur's mana usage is mediocre at best, but he now has no doubts about how he could have taken down a group of slave traders. Arthur is unsure whether to feel insulted or complimented, so he just stays quiet. Tesha chimes in, scolding her grandfather and prohibiting him from teasing Arthur. It seems the old man didn't have any intention of teasing anyone. In fact, he approached Arthur because he finds him fascinating. It's been a long time since he's met someone as interesting as Arthur. Virian tosses a wooden sword at Arthur, deciding to see what the boy is really made of. Arthur grabs it promptly and, without hesitation, swings it as fast as he can, directly slashing at the old man. But what he strikes turns out to be a mana illusion. Virian, however, is impressed by the guts of this little brat. Not backing down, Arthur charges again and strikes with his wooden sword. This time too, what he hits is only a decoy. This moment of vulnerability leaves Arthur wide open, and the old man takes the chance to swing back. Arthur dodges just in time, jumping out of his initial position to safeguard himself. Despite his agility, Arthur still ends up taking a nasty elbow smash, but that's not enough to faze him. Without holding back, Arthur charges right back, wooden sword in hand. His speed is remarkable, but it's clear he's barely holding his own against this old master who isn't even breaking a sweat. Eventually, Arthur finds himself wide open once more and gets knocked back by the old man, tumbling away. Tesha quickly rushes to check on him. It looks like the old man hasn't gone off without taking damage either. Arthur has finally managed to graze this old master with his blade. Well, this old man deserves this hit, considering how full of himself he looked, as if there's no better fighter than him. While Virian is eager for another round, Tesha firmly puts her foot down. She refuses to let it happen and playfully pinches her grandfather for thinking about bullying Arthur more than he already has. The old man simply smiles back and admits that if he'd gone easier on Arthur, he'd be the one at the mercy of someone decades his junior. Arthur, on the other hand, feels honored to see how highly Virian thinks of him. But Arthur's reaction seems to get to the old man, and he quickly shifts from smiling to serious. As far as he's concerned, if Arthur truly sees him as his esteemed and honorable senior, then he invites him to become his disciple. This unexpected offer leaves Arthur absolutely bewildered, and he questions whether the elder is actually serious. The old man, of course, confirms he is. However, Arthur reminds him he's just a human, and he's not even sure if it's allowed for humans to stay in this kingdom. But Virion promises no one will dare kick him out while he's under his tutelage. He vows to teach Arthur something far more valuable than even the most capable mages in Sapin could offer. Still, despite the tempting offer, Arthur politely declines. He has no intention of wasting time here until he reunites with his parents. Hearing this, the old man makes another promise to let Arthur communicate with his parents so they'll know he's alive and well. Before elaborating further, the old man orders the maids to take Tesha to bathe and get some rest. Once they're alone, the old man claims to know about Arthur's condition, like how he's been experiencing bouts of searing pain right where his monocore is located, and how those bouts are becoming more frequent. Naturally, Arthur is curious about how the old man knows so much. But Virion brushes off the question, saying it's pointless. Instead, Arthur should be asking what the real problem behind his illness is. Before elaborating anything, he asks Arthur if he knows anything about beast wills. Although this term is completely unfamiliar to Arthur, his mind immediately drifts back to the moment Sylvia struck his mana core. Before continuing the conversation, the old man assumes Arthur has at least encountered a few mana beasts by now. He then explains that a beast powerful enough to be categorized as Class A or higher gains the ability to pass on their will or inherent ability to another, either to their offspring or to someone they choose to bond with. He promises not to pry into how Arthur stumbled upon such a powerful beast will, but warns him that at this stage, the power within him is doing more harm than good. The fact the old man knows all this makes Arthur assume Virion also possesses a beast will too. Well, the old man doesn't shy away from admitting it. He claims he's professionally a beast tamer, a title he earned by fully conquering the monstrous beast will inside himself. He acknowledges why Arthur desperately wants to see his family and return home. But he warns that doing so right now comes with a grave risk. The power of the beast will inside Arthur is too potent for his immature body to handle. If it isn't controlled soon, the power he's obtained will destroy his body from the inside out. As Arthur lays down, his face is covered with glistening sweat. There's a heavy sensation pressing down on his body. As he drifts in and out of unconsciousness, he sees the monstrous personification of his worries and burdens. The expectations placed on him haunt him even in his sleep. But the source of all this weight isn't some ethereal creature. It's Tesha, perched right on top of him, unknowingly pressing him further into the depths of his exhaustion. She's apparently here to wake him up because she can't wait to start this new, exciting day with him. But it seems Arthur still hasn't had enough sleep, so he calls the shadow monster back to give him just a few more minutes. Later, while Arthur gets ready for the day, Tesha asks to confirm if what her grandpa said about him staying is actually true. Well, Arthur isn't too sure about this. His plan to stay here depends entirely on the trip with Elder Virion. As Arthur walks toward the carriage he's supposed to ride with the Elder, the king and queen can be seen pleading with Elder Virion to reconsider, because it's inappropriate for a human to stay in their kingdom. It goes against the traditions,